watching Money Talks with me, Taiba Aiden. Coming up on the program, China braces for a second Trump presidency with potential tariffs threatening global trade. AI is helping reduce costs and improve efficiency in logistics. And Argentina's monthly inflation hits a 3-year low, suggesting President Milei's aggressive policies may be yielding results. As the world grapples with a new political landscape in the United States, business industry leaders across China, Asia and India are bracing for potential tariff hikes under President-elect Donald Trump. Leading economic analysts warn that while the US-China trade deficit fell after Trump's last term, other economies may soon face rising taxes. Christina Simic has more.
Show me the money. That is essentially the phrase China, several other Asian countries, India and even Mexico could hear from President-elect Donald Trump from January 20 next year. Trump's trade war with China began in 2016 during the campaigning for his first term. In 2018, he signed off on a 25% tariff on Chinese imports.
We just imposed $200 billion at 25%. It just went on. It actually kicks in on January 1st at 25%. It starts off at 10%, but sure goes to 25%. And if there's a retaliation against our farmers and our industrial workers, our ranchers, if any of that goes on, we're going to kick in another $257 billion.
Since then, according to US Census data, the trade deficit deal with China saw import sales dwindle by more than $67 billion. During this period, third-party countries were relied upon and reaped the financial gains. In 2023, South Korea saw a record trade surplus year, with the US garnering $44.4 billion, largely through vehicle exports. In the first quarter of 2024, Taiwan's exports hit a high of $24.6 billion, which rose by nearly 60% compared with the same time last year. Vietnam's surplus from January to September this year stands at $90 billion. Leading global investors also highlighted the growing value in trade with China and the US as smaller countries strengthen their economies.
The degree of reliance from the world on China as a producer of goods and the U.S. as a consumer, that bifurcation would be extraordinarily expensive and just costly to the citizens of the world. So I really hope we avoid that. I don't see that anybody has an interest in driving that way.
There is no single country that can resolve by itself the difficulties facing the development of the world's economy.
Former Indonesian Trade Minister Mari Pangestu says while Chinese exports to the States may have fallen, it has diverted traffic through other countries, a tactic she thinks Trump may notice and capitalise on. So how much will it cost them and the rest of the world? Well, during campaigning, Trump announced his intention to impose a blanket tariff of up to 20% on all imports, plus an extra 60 to 100% hike on all Chinese products. Christina Simic, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now with Ross Feingold in Taipei. He's the former Asia chairman of Republicans Abroad. Thanks for joining us, Ross. Now, Trump's America First agenda is fueling fears of a renewed US-China trade war. What ramifications could this have on the world's top economies?
Trump has made it very clear that he's going to impose higher tariffs, not just on China, but on other countries as well. It's something he could easily do by executive order. And it's a campaign promise that, frankly, is very easy for him to cash in. So I think we should assume that he will do that. How quickly, we don't know. It could be very quick, within the first few days of his administration. We'll continue to see companies that are not Chinese companies diversifying their manufacturing locations away from China into countries in Southeast Asia like Vietnam, which has been a big beneficiary of the trade war between the US and China. Malaysia is another country that's been a beneficiary. But we'll also see Chinese companies moved some of their own manufacturing outside of China. They've moved a lot of manufacturing to Mexico, for example. So if Trump does impose the tariffs that he's said he's going to impose, we're going to see some changes with the global supply chains for sure. But will it address the problems that Trump really wants to address, which is that the U.S. still has a trade deficit with the rest of the world? That remains to be seen.
And if these if plans of these blanket tariffs were to go through, what would the consequences of this be on global trade?
There'll have to be a lot of changes to supply chains for sure. Companies will move out of China if China does get the 60% or even higher tariffs that Trump has said he has threatened. So there'll be manufacturing moving out of China. They'll move to places in Southeast Asia, maybe to India. There'll definitely be some manufacturing that moves back to the United States as well. And Trump could claim a political victory if manufacturing does return to the United States at some level in new investment and new jobs. That'll be a political victory for Trump. But of course, what economists are concerned about is the higher prices that American consumers might have to pay if we do move to a higher tariff regime.
And what about smaller economies, particularly in Asia? What can they do to mitigate the risks of shifting US trade policies?
Well, that's a great question. And I think we're going to see Asian countries are going to be competing against each other to have some of that manufacturing that's exiting China come to their country. So you have places like Vietnam and Malaysia, which have been beneficiaries, and to a lesser extent, some other countries around the region like India or Indonesia. And they're all going to be competing against each other as a place to move manufacturing out of China. So although the ASEAN countries often like to speak with one voice, they call that ASEAN centrality, when it comes to attracting investment, whether it's Chinese companies or global companies, they're competing against each other.
Okay, Ross Feingold, we will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Artificial intelligence has the potential to help firms create new value from data and reduce trade costs. And as companies look to stay competitive, AI is becoming a critical tool for driving efficiency and opening new opportunities across international markets. Tulay Kalyon Haznederoğlu explains.
In today's fast-paced world, trade is evolving rapidly, but nothing is transforming the landscape quite like artificial intelligence. From speeding up supply chains to predicting market trends, AI is now a key player in the global economy.
It's about adopting AI, and I think if you're not using AI in your day-to-day work or anything, I think you're quite far behind. And so it's more important now than ever to adopt it and learn how to use AI to enable you. So like, for example, ChatGPT, massive company, but if you're not putting the right prompts or you don't understand how to use it properly, you won't be able to maximize the use of it. So I think AI is here to improve everybody's lives.
AI is no longer a futuristic concept. It's a crucial tool for companies aiming to stay competitive. It can analyze data to forecast trends and streamline logistics, which saves time and money.
For listing optimization, you should definitely have some AI to understand whether your listing is fully optimized or not. Is it capturing the audience? The most important thing for businesses is sales, right? And for us to make sure that we're getting those sales, we need to be able to optimize every part of your business properly.
AI is also helping companies to make smarter, more informed decisions about where to invest and which markets to enter. It looks at patterns and economic indicators to predict which regions are likely to grow and where new opportunities might emerge. As artificial intelligence evolves, experts say it will become even more essential in global trade, helping businesses of all sizes to stay competitive. And as we approach 2025, AI is set to reshape the global economy. And on the consumer side, AI is personalizing shopping experiences. With smart algorithms, retailers can recommend products tailored to individuals, boosting both sales and customer satisfaction. It's a brand new era with AI where technology and commerce go hand in hand, driving innovation and growth across the world. Tulay Kalyon Haznederoğlu, TRT World, London.
For more on this, we're joined by Dennis Kenji Kipka, Research Director at the Cyber Intelligence Institute in Frankfurt, Germany. Hi there, Dennis. Thanks for being with us. Firstly, how is AI currently being used to optimize trade flows and supply chain management?
Yes, so AI is definitely optimizing trade flows and supply chain management. So by analyzing vast amounts of data, AI-powered systems can optimize various aspects of the supply chain. For instance, they can accurately predict demand, optimize inventory levels, and streamline logistics operations. And this leads to cost savings, reduced lead times, and improved customer satisfaction.
And with AI making it easier to predict demand patterns, how do you see it affecting global trade dynamics, especially for emerging markets?
AI-driven demand forecasting is reshaping global trade dynamics. So by providing accurate predictions, businesses can optimize production and logistics, leading to more efficient and cost-effective operations. And this can particularly benefit emerging markets, which often face challenges in demand forecasting due to factors like fluctuating consumer behavior and economic instability. And with AI, these markets can better anticipate demand fluctuations, reduce risks of stockouts or possibly overstocking, and make more informed decisions about production and sourcing.
And there are concerns that AI could disrupt traditional trade jobs. Do you think this transformation will lead to a net gain or loss in employment within the industry?
Yeah, so while there are definitely concerns about AI displacing traditional trade jobs, it's important to consider the potential for net job gains. So while AI can automate certain routine tasks, it can also create new opportunities and demand for higher skilled workers as well. As AI systems become more sophisticated, there will be a growing need for experts to develop, maintain, and manage these technologies. Additionally, AI can enhance human capabilities, allowing workers, for example, to focus on more complex and creative tasks.
Now, Dennis, many believe AI could reduce the costs associated with international trade. What specific areas do you think will see the biggest savings?
So AI has the potential to significantly reduce costs associated with international trade. One area where we can expect substantial savings is in logistics and transportation. AI-powered optimization algorithms can identify the most efficient shipping routes, mode of transport, and carrier selections, minimizing transportation costs. Real-time tracking and monitoring of shipments can also help reduce delays and expedite customs clearance.
Okay, Dennis Kenji Kipka, Research Director at the Cyber Intelligence Institute. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
The world's wealthiest individuals saw their fortunes skyrocket to record levels in the wake of Donald Trump's election victory. Unsurprisingly, it's US tech titans who came out on top. According to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, the combined wealth of the world's top 10 richest individuals soared by nearly $100 billion in the past week alone. The optimism swirling around Trump's anticipated policy agenda pushed stocks higher, fueling this significant increase in wealth. Many of these billionaires are expected to benefit from deregulation and tax cuts, which could unleash fresh waves of investment in their companies. Leading the pack was Elon Musk, whose fortune swelled by $50 billion, pushing his net worth past the $300 billion mark for the first time. As a vocal supporter of Trump, Musk benefited from a sharp rise in Tesla's share price, where he holds a 13% stake as CEO of the electric car giant. The president-elect has hinted at a potential role for Musk in his administration, possibly appointing him as an efficiency czar to streamline government operations. Other big winners include Amazon's Jeff Bezos, who added another $7 billion to his nearly $230 billion fortune. Microsoft's Bill Gates, former CEO Steve Ballmer, and Google's co-founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin also rode the market wave to grow their already massive fortunes. And Meta's Mark Zuckerberg faced a slight dip on the election day, but remained solidly in the top ranks with a net worth of $209 billion. However, his strained relationship with Trump remains a looming shadow. The president-elect has previously threatened legal action against Zuckerberg over alleged meddling during the 2020 election. It's good news for the Eurozone as employment rose more than expected last quarter and the economy expanded at a respectable pace. These figures are keeping alive hopes for a soft landing after more than a year of near stagnation. Randolph Nogel reports.
The Eurozone's GDP grew by 0.4% quarter-on-quarter from July to September in 2024, marking its fastest pace in 2 years and exceeding expectations of 0.2%. Ireland's unpredictable GDP growth, heavily impacted by multinational corporations, significantly inflated the Eurozone's overall growth figure. France's 0.4% growth in the third quarter was likely aided by Olympic-related spending. Germany narrowly avoided a recession with a 0.2% GDP increase in the third quarter, driven by higher government and household spending, surprising analysts who'd predicted a contraction. Spain posted a strong performance with 0.8% growth, boosted by EU recovery funds. Italy saw no GDP growth in the third quarter, highlighting economic challenges. Eurozone employment grew by 0.2% on the third quarter, twice as fast as predicted. While employment growth remains relatively weak, the figures may still ease fears that a downturn in the jobs market could drag the bloc into recession. But high interest rates, shrinking corporate margins, and weak private consumption are all adding to the negative news flow. Eurozone industrial production fell more than expected, 2% in September, indicating that a long-expected recovery could be even further delayed.
After months of aggressive cost-cutting under President Javier Milei, Argentina is finally seeing some relief from skyrocketing inflation. But that progress has come at a cost. Consumer spending has plunged, leaving millions still struggling to navigate a harsh economic landscape. Omar Baccalolo has the story.
When Argentine President Javier Milei took office in December 2023, he promised to pull it out of a dire economic crisis. The self-confessed anarcho-capitalist brought a chainsaw to his campaign rallies to symbolize his commitment to cutting public spending. Within months, he devalued the peso by 50%, cut fuel subsidies, and reduced government ministries by half. Now, almost a year into his right-wing presidency, those drastic measures are finally starting to show some results. Inflation is Milei's top priority. Prices rose 2.7% in October. In most parts of the world, that will be a huge increase in just 1 month. But in Argentina, it was the lowest monthly rise in 3 years. On an annualized basis, inflation is down to 193%, dipping below the 200% threshold for the first time in nearly a year.
It's interesting because wholesale inflation ran at 54% per month when we arrived. Today it is running at 2% per month. It travels less than the crawl plus imported inflation. Therefore, we are technically close to zero monetary inflation.
But while the numbers are getting better, citizens still tighten their belts to make it to the end of the month.
The price of meat hasn't gone up this month because there is very little consumption. As consumption goes down, sales also go down. And well, it's a bit complicated. Unfortunately, we started November with a small increase in chicken and meat purchase values. We are absorbing this increase, but there will come a time when we'll not be able to absorb it anymore.
Perhaps inflation has not increased so much in the last month. But the reality is that people cannot buy. Domestic consumption. That is something very clear. I think there is no doubt about it. Now the increase in prices or inflation is not being seen. But there is not much margin for it to happen, and there is no one to buy either.
Despite Milei's efforts to control inflation, over half of Argentina's 46 million people are now living in poverty. The austerity have also deepened a recession that began last year, with the IMF expecting a 3.5% economic contraction for 2024. So, while inflation may be cooling, critics argue that Milei's few wins have come at a steep cost for Argentina's middle class. Omar Baccalolo, TRT World.
As Russia continues to record its lowest birth rates in decades, the government has accelerated incentives for Russians to have more babies. In what officials have called a special demographic operation, legislation will be introduced to encourage a more traditional outlook amongst prospective mothers and fathers. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
This is a prescription for a blood test that will determine the level of anti-Mullerian hormone, which is used to check a woman's ability to produce eggs that can be fertilized for pregnancy. Russia's state health system invites all female Muscovites aged between 18 to 40 to take it and use the procedures for freezing eggs or artificial insemination. This is just the latest incentive to encourage Russians to have babies in what is a shrinking population.
I don't have kids or family. It is in fact my main goal to start a family, but I can't see it's possible now. It seems too difficult. Most importantly, a family needs financial support, and that's not quite sufficient. A place to live is needed for the kids as well, and they also will need money. With my current salary, I won't make it if I had a child.
A good life balance is required, and stability. I just can't introduce any person into life when I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Since I'm a mom of a special needs child, there is not enough parental support from the state. School specialists who can work with such kids. I think this area should be expanded, because there are many such kids today, and this is where support is needed.
A study from Higher School of Economics University showed a quarter of Russians decided to postpone or give up having kids after 2022. They say current situation is unstable or cite financial troubles or even note insufficient support measures. In the first half of this year, Russia's population recorded its lowest number of births in 25 years, a situation the Kremlin described as catastrophic. The fear is that Russia is running out of Russians. There are plans to increase state maternity payments, but some experts say the government should at least double the spending on natal support measures and make sure they cover all stages of parenting.
There's been significant progress in demographic support over the past 20 years, but it is insufficient. The share of natal support policies, family support measures is around 1 to 2% of the GDP, depending on the estimate methods. That is very small. That's amongst the least supportive countries in this field. The most supportive ones spend at least 4%.
Russia's demographic problem has deep roots. It is the small generation of the 1990s that is having children today. But there are other issues too. Lawmakers now suggest introducing a special demographic operation, including legislation on issues like banning promotion of child-free lifestyles and encouraging on students to start families early. Dasha Chernyshova, TRT World, Moscow.
Belgian farmers have jammed up streets across Brussels with tractors. They're demanding the government not go through with a deal between the EU and Mercosur countries. The agreement may lift tariffs from these countries, making local agricultural products less competitive. Emre Boz reports.
These tractors are not here to work. Instead, they're protesting for better pay and working conditions for farmers. Leading the protests in the capital, Brussels, is the Walloon Farmers Federation, denouncing a proposed deal between the EU and the South American trade bloc, Mercosur. They fear the deal will reduce tariffs in the country, dropping local prices even further. And as prices fall, so too will incomes. Market intelligence firm Reportlinker says that agricultural production in Belgium is expected to decline by 0.1% every year from 2022 to 2026. This is bad news for the economy, which is posting already underwhelming growth, staying flat at the 0.2 to 0.3% growth range.
Let's take the example of bovine meat. They can produce bovine meat for half the price because they don't face the same sanitary and environmental standards. So this meat, which is going to come here at a very low price, will completely break the meat market in our regions, and our producers will have to close down their businesses because we won't be able to be competitive.
Farmers are also fed up with strict EU environmental rules, which is slowing down agricultural output. And analysts are saying that the government is looking more and more likely to move forward with the deal.
In about just under 2 weeks' time, there will be a final meeting in Brazil to kind of cross the T's, dot the I's on this deal. A week after that, a formal announcement in Uruguay.
If this new deal comes to fruition, it may mean more agricultural products at cheaper prices, flooding the Belgian economy. This will kill demand for local products. All these issues piling up may prove catastrophic for Belgium's already declining farming industry. Emre Boz, TRT World.
And if you have any stories you'd like our reporters to look into or any questions for our experts, you can reach out to us on X at TRT Money Talks. Well, that is all from Money Talks for now. From me and the whole team here in Istanbul, thanks for watching.